Welcome back. Dale Myers with Vision Advanced. Today we are going to discuss what is effective leadership and how do I stack up against the best? Where do I rank according to business skills, business acumen, leadership? So this is important if you're an employee, an employer, the founder of an organization. All of us have some leadership capacity. We're all thrust into varying levels of leadership. So the only question is, how effective of a leader are we? So I'm going to rattle off a few things and then I'm going to boil it down to 5. So I'm not going to go too in depth. Some of these are kind of predictable. One of the first qualities of an effective leader are you have to be a visionary. Now, when we say visionary, we're saying that you can take an organization, a family, or whatever you are, take some group from one place to a desired future. That's the part. So I can think about it. I can see the desired future. Then also part of being a visionary is I can explain the why. Why is it important that we get there? Then we must also be able to say, how are we going to get there? So a visionary is one important part of an effective leader. In terms of how are we going to get there, you must also be proficient at goal setting and progress monitoring. Being able to set clearly defined goals along with objectives and timelines for measuring. This, of course, includes who's going to do it. Who's going to do it, by what time frame, and a process for analyzing it. That also means then that effective leaders have to be fairly organized and analytical. You need to be able to think. Thinking is an important component of being a leader. Bringing it back to the where are we going, the vision, well, that's often tied to some big why. Why is it important for the organization to get there? And then why is it important for me as a human being, as the leader, to achieve it? Well, this also comes back to being able to communicate with your subordinates. You need to be able to find out what's important to them. So these are interpersonal skills we're talking here. What's important to the people around you, and tie what's important to them to organizational goals. Personal achievement tied to organizational achievement. Being able to find some commonality there. And also, with that being stated, the leader sets the culture. And many times the leadership is responsible for the culture. So this is going to inform your hiring practices. What kind of people do I bring on in the first place? What sort of people do I need? What skills, but also what characteristics do these people need to have in order to fit within my culture? Because we're not going to do it all by ourselves. This vision of achievement is going to involve others. We need to be able to inspire them, but first they need to be in alignment with what we stand for as an organization. So part of that too is, this is an important quality, being self-reflective. We can assess ourselves, which means that we are constantly growing. We're identifying our strengths and our weaknesses. And then, because we know that we can't do it all, but what we can do is identify our weaknesses, and taking it right back to the hiring part, we can hire people to account for our blind spots, to account for our weaknesses, to complement us. That is what effective leaders do. We can't do it all. We delegate those areas of weakness. Wow, I'm getting better at that. That's one thing that I used to be the guy that tried to fix everything. Well, I'm going to strengthen all my weaknesses. To a point, yes, you address it. But in the end, you delegate and let somebody else, because your weakness is probably someone else's strength. Okay? So that's one quality. And along with that, we need to have a healthy mix of confidence balanced by humility. Confidence balanced by humility. That's an important point. We're going to dig into that on a video for another day. Rapid framing of problems. How quickly can you identify the problem and then come up with a method for solving it? This also means we need to think creatively. And there are literally some things you can do to spur your creative thought process. And we often teach that to executives. You can literally train your brain to think. It is brainstorming, but there's some tricks to getting that thing going. One other thing, this one here too, is talking about interpersonal skills. Good leaders are aware of perception. How are they being perceived by others? How do others react when they enter the room, when they speak? Now, this also should occur through formal and informal feedback. You should have created that culture of openness so that your people feel comfortable in coming to you. Again, the culture, that's one of the greatest things of a leader. We have to shape that culture. We inform the culture by how we act, by how we lead. All right. And lastly, the organization. Knowing the organizational goals. And also, if you came into an organization, let's say that you didn't start it, you're just a part of the organization. Being clear on what the organization values. Is creativity and innovation the top priority, or is it a culture of trust? What is it that each organization values, being able to fit into that organization and be in alignment with it? All right, so that's a lot. Make sure I didn't leave off anything. I got it all. All right, so no, I didn't. Negotiating. Well, obviously you might have to negotiate your salary, but negotiating with your subordinates in terms of lots of different things, negotiating business deals. That is a huge and often overlooked component of leadership, effective leadership. So again, I've rattled off a list of leadership skills. And I talked about the culture, and what I didn't talk about was communication, risk-taking. We've talked about all of these in other videos, but of course we have to communicate the vision down. We have to communicate what the cultural expectations, risk-taking. All leadership is risk. If you're not taking risks, you're not really developing your leadership potential. So we have to have a method for dealing with that. All right. Developing teams. So here we are. All that stuff we just said, I'm going to encapsulate it. The American Management Association came up, they researched thousands of scholarly articles and best practices, and basically they said that leadership can be broken down into 5 main categories, and that's what I want to leave you with. All right, where'd my marker go? Here we are. The first one is what we talked about first. An effective leader shapes the future. That's that visionary stuff we talked about. That's also that cultural stuff that we discussed. So the first one is shapes the future. But you have to do more than talk about the future. You must have a plan to make things happen. All of the things we were doing were talking about, how do I make things happen? How do I achieve personal and organizational goals? Number 3, engage new talent, or engage the current talent. The bottom line, you must be able to engage the workforce. You must be able to inspire and communicate with others. Team building, as we briefly touched on. All of that is part of the leadership. All right. And related to that, build the next generation. You must have a plan for human improvement. This is an integral part of your success, because as you ascend up the ladder, you have a responsibility to the organization to be preparing a few people beneath you to take your spot. That is a huge part. And lastly, invest in self. Arguably the greatest, because if you invest in self, you become a better shaper of the future. You will become better at making things happen. Investing in self, relentless improvement, reading the books, listening to audio books, watching the correct sorts of videos. You become better at engaging new talent, and certainly you build the next generation. So if you ask me, that's the most important. So what does it take to be an effective leader? Lots of different things. There's not one thing. Where do you fall on this leadership scale? What's the one thing out of the ones we've been talking about? Where are you? What are you going to work on? What are you going to delegate? These are this is kind of the mindset we need to have. We're not going to be perfect, but we should be relentlessly investing in self, improving ourselves. I'm Dale Myers with Vision Advance. Please thumbs up the video, Like, subscribe if you haven't. Share it on all of your socials. We'll talk soon. Take care.